Ladies and gentlemen in the Gentlemen's Club, all rise for the National Strip Club Anthem. Except for you, Vince Neil. Nicolas Cage will have to eject you again. This is The Dirt, a Motley Crüe retrospective.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Dirt, a Motley Crüe retrospective on Renegade Jukebox. As usual, this is Nick here.
And this is Mike.
And for a change, we are talking to you guys about a better record. I was initially planning on making some bad joke about how blind people go on the internet. I didn't even know how I was originally going to go with it. It was going to be something like, well, you guys can obviously read the name of the episode. We're obviously talking about the next Motley Crüe album. You can't see it, but I'm holding it up to Mike right now. Girls, Girls, Girls from 1987.
And this will be the last record produced by Tom Werman, who has been a punching bag for at least one of the members of the band.
Yeah, just to kind of go over for people who, well, you should have gone back and listened to the last episode on Theater of Pain. It would have been more entertaining than the actual record. But yeah, Nikki basically was trashing him in the press over not liking the direction Theater of Pain went in. And then Tom was like, well, I was helping you guys make millions of dollars and you were cool with me then. So what the fuck changed, Nikki? But no, with this one, I feel like almost just kind of cutting to the chase with this one because I don't have an amazing way to kind of introduce it or give it some kind of backstory. This is the point in the band's catalog where they were cranking out records every 2 years. So consistent release schedule, but just cutting to the get-go, Girls, Girls, Girls is a better album.
Oh yeah, no, without question, it's a better album than Theater of Pain. I do have an overall thesis, but I'm going to save that till we get to the end. For now, we haven't really been talking a lot about the music videos throughout this band's career, but cutting right to the opening track, I cannot listen to Wild Side without the association of the video.
I do not blame you in the slightest on that one. I didn't watch either of the music videos. We'll cut to the most notorious one next, obviously. But yeah, my thing with Wild Side actually is just that, oh my God, this actually feels like an opening track. It's energetic. It's faster paced. It feels like it's more bigger and more massive. I was actually going back and watching the Google Play interview with all 4 original members that they did about 10 years ago. And the thing that I kind of picked up on was this is basically mixed time to show off, which is only a good thing.
Oh, yeah, that's more than obvious. Like when you listen to, all the different riffs that he comes up with. But going back to this opening track, yeah, this is one hell of a way to open the record.
I mean, that slide riff, it's memorable. Tommy really gets to show off just kind of pounding away at the snare drum. And it's just a proper way to start off a record. Like even that part where it slows down, I'm going to have us drop a sample in here just to kind of give people an idea so they know what the hell I'm talking about. and it gets you hyped up to hear the rest of the record. Like, I was surprised after how newsworthy City Boy Blues was. Like, can we just get away from Theater of Pain, for fuck's sakes? Like, I'll mention something with a song later about it, but yeah, just keep that album far and far away from this band.
Yeah, the less said about that, the better. But yeah, just jumping off what you said about the slower part of the song, somehow the slower beats are actually more energetic than the main chorus.
Kind of in some ways. The thing that I'm kind of liking, and I'll say, here's what I kind of wish this album did more of later in my favorite song on this record. I do wish that this record was considerably darker, just given the point in the band's history, especially involving drug use. Like, I think that had you gone for a darker tone, I think maybe glam could be a little bit more appealing to me, I guess. Just that darkness is something that just I find a lot more appealing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And if this album did lean towards like the darker side of glam, it would actually be a nice contrast to the other big album that came out in 1987, Hysteria by Def Leppard.
Exactly. Like, just going from like the glitziest possible production and the most sugary, no pun intended, chorus as possible. It'd be a cool contrast to have another band that's kind of on that same level do something that's just super dark and super gritty. Because I think that they would be capable of pulling it off. It's not like it wouldn't make sense, given the band's reputation at this point. But kind of as the intro says, we all must rise for the National Strip Club Anthem, the title track.
Yep. Girls, girls, girls.
So I know we just spent most of the last episode dunking on how overplayed Smoking in the Boys Room and Home Sweet Home were. Weird enough, I'm not annoyed when this comes on still.
I think Mick has a lot to do with it, to be honest.
That probably is the case, but I'm also just kind of going, yes, it absolutely is mandatory to be played in every strip club internationally from here on out the rest of our lives. But at the same time, it kind of fits that vibe perfectly. And it also kind of feels dirty and scuzzy at the same time without making you feel like, okay, this is gross, or it feels like it was written by a gigantic virgin, i.e. anything written by Buckcherry. But I mean, to give the song credit, the riff's good. The hook works. I don't really have that much to say. This honestly probably was the first Motley Crüe song that I sought out back in the day.
I don't know if this was my first, but one of the things I associate this like the most with, aside from every strip club in America, is the VH1 documentary, Heavy, the Story of Metal. This was a song that kind of introduced like the latter half of the 80s glam metal scene.
For me, actually, the way I first heard it was when Metal Injection mainly was a video site. It wasn't just exclusively a news site. Like, this was back when metal videos were, you know, you had to go to MTV to go watch stuff that would air on Headbangers Ball, but I believe it was in the background for Two Girls on Halloween introducing some videos on Metal Injection's livecast. And it went into Nymphetamine by Cradle of Filth and then Vermilion by Slipknot, which weirdest contrast possible. Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crüe, then Cradle of Filth and Slipknot, which I'm not going to complain. All three are great tunes. It's just a weird contrast.
For sure.
But I don't have too much to say about the title track. Guaranteed you all have heard it somewhere out in the wild.
Yep.
But that being said, I don't know about you, Mike, but I think the next song is my favorite song on the record.
I think it's probably mine as well.
Yeah, so Dancing on Glass. So this is the one thing I really wanted to illustrate about this record, being if it was much darker, grittier, had a lot more dirt under its nails in terms, like it clearly does compare to Theater of Pain, obviously. But if this had a considerable amount, like showed the darker side of partying, showed the darker side of the band's antics, I think that we could have been for something a lot more fascinating. But Dancing on Glass is basically the story about Nicky's first drug overdose. So the story goes they're touring, I believe, the UK during the Theater of Pain run, and Nicky's out partying, shoots up some heroin, and his friends decide to chuck his body in a dumpster.
Ooh.
So that is what wakes him back up from, just being jostled like that is just, oh my God. Like, this song is the story about that. And the fact that it has this weird saxophone thing going on in the background, which kind of makes it feel like all the more disorienting at the same time. And it's heavier slightly for them. And I'm just kind of sitting here going like, man, if they did an entire album full of this stuff, I'd be into it.
Oh, yeah. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to the writing credits on this record too. Something I just kind of noticed on the surface. The more party-ish songs are written by Tommy Lee and Vince Neil, whereas Nikki Sixx wrote like most of this record. But I think the darker ones are just Nikki Sixx and Mick Mars. And you can kind of just tell that by the lyrics.
Yeah, just kind of spitballing off of what Wikipedia says. It sounds like Nicky, in hindsight, he's more appreciative of this record, but at the time, he just kind of wasn't as happy with it as he could have been. One part of me doesn't blame him on either front, mostly just because you are putting your name on an album like this. But at the same time, it's like, man, I kind of wish I went there with the darkness on this one. But just to kind of drop a bit of a sample in terms of like what we're talking about, like just take a listen to this and see if it's something you might actually listen to. Like, it surprises me that this band is more capable of doing stuff that is better, but most people just go for the big radio hits.
It's unfortunate, but not to jump too far ahead in the future, but if you do want more of like the darker lyrics, I would recommend Nikki Sixx's solo act, 6 a.m.
Yeah, I almost kind of felt like, because I did pick up both the Dirt and the Heroin Diaries books, I was kind of tempted to read both books simultaneously while listening to these records, just to kind of put myself in the mindset. And then right once I get past the girls chapter, I would hop right into the Heroin Diaries, since that's the entirety of his drug addiction and his spiral out of control. Like, that to kind of go along with it would be super fascinating to follow.
Yeah, that is one hell of a story.
But with that in mind, we get to weirdly my least favorite title on the album, but shockingly an overall good tune. Bad Boy Boogie. Seriously, Mike, I hate this fucking title.
It's a bad title. And this and All in the Name of have very contrasting qualities. Lyrically, they're kind of junk, but like the music is actually really good.
See, here's my thing, and I was mostly saving this joke for later. You know what? I just might, just because taking a cursory glance at the genius.com page. Yeah, I'm totally reading where you're coming from on that front. But for me, on the music side of things, despite my problems with pretty much every record so far, just being 4 on the floor, hammering you home with the chorus, repeat, and that chorus is just repeating the song title. Weird enough here, it doesn't bother me so much. I don't get why, but maybe it just caught me in a better mood.
Yeah, it's possible. Also, just like as boring and repetitive as the 4 on the floor can be, I think just the riff within that beat still kind of works and is fun.
Yeah, it is kind of just one of those weird situations where if I am going to kind of be a little bit of a hypocrite and bring up Theater of Pain again. It does feel like it would be a lesser track on Shout at the Devil, but then like a better cut on Theater of Pain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from.
Then we get to another interlude track, which I'm really, my only note about Nona is just that it's not bad, but it's just not as good as God Bless the Children of the Beast.
Weirdly enough, I kind of get Beatles vibes from like the harmonies in Nona.
You know what? I'm kind of hearing it in hindsight, and it would make sense given the cover that closes this album. So I am hearing where you're coming from. It's weirdly too upbeat for me. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It just kind of doesn't really belong.
And again, just I hate to just draw some kind of comparison, but just roll with me on this one. You know how the interludes on World Coming Down by Typo Negative were just like constantly different scenarios of people dying because of certain organs in their body failing?
Oh, yeah.
I kind of feel like had they gone with something super dark like that and just had a darker, chunkier riff or like even a clean part, just have that be the transition into the next song, I feel like that would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would add a lot more texture to this record.
So next song, 5 Years Dead, and just considering, to stress this to our listeners again, the way I'm hearing all of these 80s albums for the first time is purely through listening to the vinyl. So I don't have any notes for 5 Years Dead, but honestly, it's a good way to start the last half of the record. Probably is one of the stronger sides of the last half of the record, but I'll take a good tune where I can get it.
Yeah, just kind of maintaining just the overall just high quality of this record.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, it just has to go ahead and nosedive because all in the name of, all in the name of, all in the name of rock and fucking roll. Mike, cool if I tear the Band-Aid off for our listeners?
Rip it off.
The lyrics here are fucking creepy, man. Like, I was telling you this off air, and I'm hoping you know where I'm going with this. It almost gives that Nickelback song a run for its money. It's the one on All the Right Reasons. It's the one with the lyric, they think they'll get inside her with every drink they buy her or something. It almost gives that a run for its money, but it involves a 15-year-old.
Now, here's the thing. That is literally the first line of this song.
If a band did this in the year 2024, they would be done.
I don't know how they got away with this song back then.
I mean, Led Zeppelin haven't been torn to shreds yet, so that's my only thing I can think of. I don't know, dude. I'm just talking out of my ass at this rate.
True, but at least Led Zeppelin had class. They're one of those like legacy bands that you don't really talk down on.
Also, Led Zeppelin wrote Kashmir. It smokes all of these records we've just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, like, even on the music front, yeah, it keeps the energy going. It's not necessarily a bad song on the instrumental front, but it's just these lyrics, man. No, not here, not this. I guess care to introduce our next song for our dear listeners after hearing that?
The next track is, in my opinion, the superior closing track, and that's Something for Nothing.
Want to know my only note I wrote for it? I feel like it could apply to most glam bands, but want to know what I wrote for it?
What did you write?
An ode to pussy.
Yeah.
That's what this song is, and that's all I have to say about it, is just that it is an ode to the female genitalia. And does it work? Sure, but I'll take what I can get here. No pun intended, ooh, our matron. But this is where we get to Guys, I hate to copy Todd in the Shadows video on Generation Swine, which we're gonna do our best not to just copy that video beat for beat for beat. But Motley Crüe ballads are terrible.
Yeah. And here is my big question when it comes to You're All I Need. How much of this song was like a mandate by the label because of how big? I know, I'm sorry, guys. I have to go back to Theater of Pain for just one last time. Considering how big Home Sweet Home was, I'm wondering if their label's like, oh, that was great. Do another one.
Either that or just how big the power ballad got in terms of glam bands. I mean, I'm just pulling up Poison's Wikipedia page because I'm just not as familiar with them, but just going back and looking at their first record, maybe they got the idea of, hey, let's put more ballads on the next record. And I don't even really know where I'm going with this, Mike, to be honest. It's just a lame tune, and it just doesn't work for me. Like, as overplayed as Home Sweet Home can get, you could make the argument that it's a testament just to being that good of a song. Here, no one is talking about this one, especially considering we're following a song that was, again, an ode to pussy.
Here's the thing about You're All I Need. It sounds less like a glam metal ballad and more like adult contemporary with a few sort of like metal like flashes.
I don't feel like that's wrong at all. So sure, yeah, let's roll with that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that on some level, but like even Mick's solo on this thing is just kind of wimpy. It doesn't have any flash or feels like it's showing off.
And when Mick can't even save a song like this, that's when you know it's game over.
Actually, even to just go back to Todd in the Shadows for just a moment, the power ballad side of glam metal is supposed to be where, yeah, you're turning the lights down, you're setting more of a mood and like a more like loving kind of tone to it. Again, considering most of the lyrics have to do with so much hedonism on this album, I kind of can't help but go like, this just feels really forced.
Again, kind of going back to the question, because even the year that this record came out, one of the other big hits was Whitesnake's "Here I Go Again," which A has a lot more power in just the chorus, and B, even if I like had no interest in glam metal at all, that's still just a really good song. This is I don't know who the audience is for this song.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Even if I'm not exactly the biggest glamour Whitesnake guy on the planet, even I'll be willing to go. I would rather hear "Here I Go Again" for the up millionth time over the like. There's a reason you're hearing that more than "You're All I Need," and that's just kind of my closing statement about that song.
And even that's still not technically the end of this record because for whatever reason, we end on a live cover of Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock.
I don't even want to say it's a bad cover. It's just like, what the fuck are you guys doing putting a live cut at the end of your studio album?
Yeah, it's a very baffling choice.
One part of me wants to say it's kind of a reverse, like out of left pocket, not metal thing, but it's kind of like how Blink 182 put Man Overboard at the end of their live album, I guess. But it just that worked because it's like, okay, you're at the end of the live show, and then you immediately cut into a new song that wasn't on the last record, and it's like, okay, you have a reason for people to go out and buy this. Here, it just feels like they just sped up the original slightly.
Yeah, and then just kind of extended the ending and just kind of jammed for the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, the entire cover just feels more like it's a jam rather than just trying to cover it or like adopt it to their style. I don't know. This does not work for me.
And I want to stress, I have no problem with this song or like with this recording in and of itself. It's simply the placement on the record that I take issue with.
Yeah, it's just such a bizarre way. The album doesn't so much end so much as it does just stops dead in its place. And one thing that I really love about albums is when it doesn't just fade out. It's like it makes you feel like you listen to an experience. Like to go back to one of our earlier episodes covering an entire band's catalog, our Machine Head series. Take Me Through the Fire is a great example of this. It makes you feel like, oh my God, I just listened to an hour of this and it's amazing. I need to hear it again now. Here, the end of this record, it like as good as the songs on this album can be. Yeah, I'd have no problem hearing it again, but it ends so bizarre.
Honestly, if you cut this down to 8 tracks, short, sweet, to the point, like a tight 30-minute record, I'd have no problem with this. In fact, I will even go far as to say where we are right now in the discography, I still think Shout at the Devil is their crowning achievement, their masterpiece. But this is a pretty close second.
I'm still feeling like apologizing to Too Fast for Love, especially given how brutal we were on Theater of Pain. But I'm tempted to just put it at third, but it's a very respectable third so far. But in terms of best songs, I have a strong suspicion our favorites are both Wild Side title track, Dancing on Glass, and 5 Years Dead.
Yeah, the order is kind of interchangeable, but that is basically the selections.
My running gag whenever I automatically just know what people are going to say, I just go, I'm psychic. That's why. I'm not psychic, but I'll claim to be just for comedic effect. But no, girls, girls, girls. The last thing I guess to kind of lead into the next record with is just that the album peaked at number 2 on Billboard, but Nikki kind of feels like there was some studio payola going on to keep them from having the number 1 record on Billboard, which maybe I don't know exactly about that per se, just given how ubiquitous and huge glam was at the time and just how big the singles were and how big MTV was blowing up glam bands at the time. So, and also you're sharing the same record label as Metallica, like a young fledgling startup band at this point, just breaking into arenas. So I'm kind of finding that to be a bit of a bullshit argument on your part, Nikki. But I get where you're coming from trying to be competitive.
Yeah, that does seem like a pretty BS excuse. But number 2 is still like nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the closest we've ever gotten, like in modern times that I can think of, is Wrath by Lamb of God. Like, that's the last time I think any super heavy record has almost topped the Billboard charts. But it just kind of ending on that note, just all I will say to kind of lead into the next episode is drugs. All of the drugs. But this time they're getting flushed. And that is how we lead into Dr. Feelgood whenever that episode drops, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Fingers crossed.
But until then, Nick, where can everyone find you online?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram. I mostly post album covers, movies I'm watching, and depending on if I have the time or not, video games I happen to be playing at the time. I just crossed over to 3,300 followers. Go shoot me a follow, binge like my page, and I might have some stuff coming soon. I'm going to keep my mouth shut for right now.
And you guys can follow me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You guys can check out my quick thoughts on letterbox.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You need escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Jukebox. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.